soul tie is a sexually transmitted disease that you can't see or feel or know, right? It's a disease of the mind, it's a disease of the spirit. Hi IG fam, welcome back to another Tea Talk Tuesday video. I am channeling fall vibes. Yes, are we loving the outfit? This week we are going to be discussing premarital sex. And I've titled today's talk, I Don't Want to Wait in Vain. How many of us are so familiar with the spirit of hurry up man, hurry up. Right? Sometimes I actually feel guilty. Sometimes I feel really bad about how impatient I am. I can't, I just, come on, hurry up. I don't have the tolerance for this. You know, I'm impatient with my kids. The wait. Alright, so let's jump back on topic. The wait as it relates to sex. I can tell you from my experience, there's an abundance of resources on the internet, in books, all over the place. If you really want to get some extra resource and extra encouragement to wait, if it is that you are not married, I know that there's a plethora of information on the internet and everywhere. All I'm doing is sharing my experience. I was very aware and kind of uneasy about doing a video about waiting to have sex now as a married woman. I always feel like a single person should do these types of videos because they're right there in the moment. They are right there in the temptation. They're right there in the pressure. They know. When you're married and you can have all the sex, it feels a way to come and tell people don't have sex. But the truth is the perspective I'm coming from is because I know what I've experienced. I know what I've walked through. I know what I'm walking through right now. I remember when I met my spouse, he had terrible sinus and allergies and stuff like that. So he was always scratching his throat and, you know, stuffy and stuff like that, you know. But I never had those issues. Never had those issues. And I kid you not, I don't know what it is. Now that I am married to him, I find myself, you know, them seven people are together for a long time, they start to look like each other. I don't know if I look like my husband, but I promise you, I start doing the same thing, and scratching the ears. With the two of us alone, we're in the house, and he came and he was just like, baby, that was you? That was you scratching your throat all while? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my gosh, I've never heard you do that before. I'm like, I know. What's happening to me? You've gotten into my veins, like, you know, like Spider-Man. I'm saying this to say, here's my point. When you really become one with a person, you really become one with the person. Are you following me? This might be a silly way of expressing how you join with a person and really become tied to that person. But listen, I thought about it and I said, yo, I have to share because that's really how I feel. I really feel like I took on a lot of my husband's self into my personality, into how I am, into my physical being. I can't express it. The intimacy, the bond that it has created with my husband and I. If he is across the room and I look at him and he look at me, I know what he's thinking and he knows what I'm thinking. I know his thoughts and he knows my thoughts. I'm telling you, that bond, that tie that we have to each other is very real. I've shared here on social media when he was racially profiled and police were called to where he was and there was a big thing. I've posted it on here. That morning I had that, even in that moment, I think I was praying for him. I was praying for him. And little after I finished praying, him called me and said, baby, you wouldn't believe what just happened. When I tell you, you become bonded to the person. I'm not telling no lie. So when we talk about casual sex or being casually involved, first of all, nothing is casual about sex. I don't care what nobody wants to say. How can the thing that is that activity that creates life, when the man and the woman meet, and that occurrence, that doing that happens in sex, that otherworldly experience, that earth-moving, earth-shattering moment can be casual. There are very few things. When we use the term orgasmic to describe something, there's a reason why we would even use it to describe something that is so, it's orgasmic. Because an orgasm is indescribable. It releases things in us, the oxytocin or whatever it is, where there's very little outside of that can compare to that feeling, because of the nature of sex and the intimacy and the vulnerability that has to be involved. I cannot see it as casual. I can't. I do believe that there's a spiritual intertwining that happens, a mental bonding that happens every single time. And that's what we've coined as a soul tie. Yeah. And so even after experiencing that level of intimacy with a person, breaking away from them, moving on, best believe there are things that you've taken from them and that they've taken from you. And now you've gone out and you've brought some of that into your other relationship, and they've gone with it into their relationship. And it's just a string. It's just a string tying people to each other, people that have no business being tied to each other, things that have now come up into your subconscious, into your personality, that were not there before that interaction with that person. There's a verse in the Bible that says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I cannot allow my feelings to determine my actions. Hear me, I tell you? Because if we do that, I can't even trust my own heart. When you cross the line into intimacy, right? For instance, for me, in my experience, right? A lot of the things that I had to work through in premarital counseling before I got married were issues that maybe really and truly, because we were sexually intimate before we got married, there are things that I had to go back now and do the hard work of getting, therapy and counseling and stuff, things that we had to work through, that because we were sexually intimate, it blinded us. It blinded us to the different things that both of us were challenged with, that would not make for a good relationship, that would not make for a good marriage. That's the truth. A lot of blindness, a lot of love is blind, big up Eve. I'm telling you, it would have caused me to have agreed to things, do things, be quiet about certain things when I should have spoken up about it. Red flags that should have been there that I just did not pay attention to because of sexual intimacy before its time. Solomon talks about do not awaken love before its time, right? And I'm telling you, I wish that my husband and I were able to have known each other outside of sexual intimacy, because we were sexually active before we got married. When we got married, there are things about him I didn't know. There were things about him that just started to come to my knowledge, because we spent so much time with the sexual intimacy that the intimacy that should have been built up in just being around each other, being in each other's space, understanding each other, knowing each other. Of course, as I said, God has allowed us to reclaim a lot of it because of His grace, right? But I'm telling you, it is a lot of work. And the time that you use to explore each other sexually before marriage, when you get into marriage, there are things that you should have explored before the marriage that you didn't get to explore. And so now all you have is the sex, and then you realize sex is not as important. We know that sex in marriage is very, very important, but there are other things that if it is not undergirded by, you can't enjoy the sex. So now you have free reign, free rights, you're gone clear, you get your papers, you're licensed enough of sex, but then there are other things that are blocking the sex, communication issues, traumas that should have been worked out, red flags that should have been seen and addressed that now appear in your marriage. So you can have sex, but you don't want to have the sex. As I say, when we don't do the work necessary before, when we don't make the foundation stable, Bible talks about it, you're building a house. If you're building it on sand, if you're building it on anything else but sure rock, it is bound to fall. If God is not the foundation of the thing, it is going to fall apart. If you don't do the work to set the right foundation in place before marriage, when you get into the marriage, you're going to have a heck of a work to do, to fight to get it to where you need it to be. It's not fun. It's not fun, and it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. I know my experience. And both my husband and I agree that if we had spent time unpacking certain things, it could even be something as simple as just, these expectations that we have coming into marriage. I expect my husband, before I got married, to be the type where every night he's gonna set a bubble bath for me and give me a massage. And if I really did spend time unpacking certain things, we could have, the time when we spend having sex, we could be having conversations about, what can I realistically look forward to when I marry you? What are some of the expectations I have of him? What are some of the expectations he has of me? These are conversations we need to have. How do you handle stress? How do you handle finances? These are the discussions we need to be having. When you get upset, instead of us just having sex to quell the argument, if we subtract the sex, then we have to have the conversation. And so when we then have the conversation, we can better develop. We can better be together. We can better, you get what I'm saying? But when we use sex to be the filler of the activity, the conversations that need to be had, the hard points, the hard things that need to be discussed, don't end up getting discussed. And then when you do decide, all right, then at whichever point, if you do decide to walk into marriage, if not, more times than none, separation happens. You gone after somebody else, me gone after somebody else, and we're carrying trauma with us into those relationships. What we have taken from you has now been deposited in us, and we continue now to give it to other people. Right? A soul tie is a sexually transmitted disease that you can't see or feel or know. Right? It's a disease of the mind, it's a disease of the spirit, it's a disease of the emotion or of emotions. It attacks those places. So not only looking out for HIV and herpes and HPV, we need to be looking out for this thing of soul ties, because it's very real. And then also, those people go off and they give it to other people. Those that then decide to get married have to go through the fight of a lifetime. Because now you can have the sex, but there's a barrage of other things that are working against you and are working to destroy and deteriorate your marriage. You see it work? It's the enemy, All intents and purposes, it's just the enemy. So, my final words on this waiting, and that the wait is not in vain. Being sexually intimate with a person does not guarantee a relationship. It does not guarantee that your heart and your soul and your spirit will receive what it's searching for. Sexual intimacy is so powerful that it has the ability to blind you. It has the ability to make you not think logically and make logical, sound decisions. And if you allow that to be so, or to be a determining factor, you end up in marriages you have no business being in, or marriages that are going to take 10 times the work that it should. Or you move on to infect other people with the bonds that you have taken up from others. And you will be in a cycle of a lifetime. Remember, all of us have a God-sized hole in us that we're trying to fill. And some people fill it with money and exploits of this world. Some people fill it with sex, they fill it with different. But none of these things ultimately are fulfilling. None of these things ultimately fill that void that they're trying to fill. Ultimately. So, what are you really getting out of being sexually active? that moment of orgasm, and then what? And if you've convinced yourself that that moment of orgasm is all you need, is it really so? It's like drugs. A drug user, a drug addict knows that the drug is not good for them, but they've become so dependent. What they desire more than anything else is freedom. But they've gotten to a state where they just don't know how to reclaim that freedom. I'm telling you, you can reclaim your freedom. I'm telling you that it does not end well. No matter how you look at it, it does not end well. Yeah, let me know in the comments. You know, this is a heavy one. What you think about premarital sex. Your true, honest opinion. And I love the fact that I have a wide cross section of followers. Christians, non-Christians, believers, unbelievers. I'd love to hear what your experience, what you would have to share on this thing of waiting. Thank you so much for watching another Tea Talk Tuesday video. I sure do hope you enjoyed the conversation and that you will tune in next week, God's willing, for another riveting discourse on whatever relationship topic we come up with. Much love.